So welcome to my class, and in this, continuing on with Unit 6, continuing on with producers, behavior and supply, we are going to talk about we're going to distinguish between change in supply and change in quantity supplied. And again, for this, you have to be very well versed with what are the factors that affect supply. So let's just revise once again. We talked about own price of the commodity. We talked about the objectives of the firm. We talked about price of inputs, price of other goods. Then we also talked about taxation. We talked about technology, OPT. Remember that. Once you know that, if you know about it, then even the distinction becomes very simple. So I want you to see, look at this. So I have shown the distinction between the two, and in the other I'm going to show you the diagrams. So this is how it is. So let's just talk about, I'm going to show it to you as I go on. Just have a look at this, and I hope you have your books open too, your NCERTs or whichever book you're consulting. It becomes very interesting then to understand. Okay, now let's just take the distinction between change in quantity supplied and change in supply. So what is the meaning? Let's just take change in quantity supplied. So other things remaining the same, when supply of a commodity changes due to change in the own price of the commodity or due to the change in the price of the commodity, it is called change in quantity supplied. Now talking about change in supply, when the supply of a commodity changes due to factors other than commodity's own price, it is called change in supply. So that is the distinction that we made. Every time we won't be, giving you the definition for that. When somebody says change in quantity supplied, the one factor that should come to your head is price. And when you talk about change in price, then all the factors other than price should come. So quantity change, one factor, that is price, that is due to price. And when you're talking about change in price, that is due to factors other than price, as we've seen. So the other determinants of price. So here we are talking about, it is now talking about the movement. So let's talk about the movement. So when there is a movement on the supply curve or along the supply curve, that is what is noticed in change in quantity supplied. So we are moving up and down the supply curve. So that is known as change in quantity supplied. And talking about change in supply, there is a movement of the supply curve. There's going to be a new supply curve. There's a movement. It could be a leftward movement, that could be a rightward movement. There could be an increase in supply, there could be a decrease in supply. So in change in quantity supplied, you are on the same curve, and in change in supply, you are on a new curve. You come to a new curve. So in this, we are talking about there are certain, like for example, if there's an increase in price, what will happen? Yes, you're right, supply will increase. So there's an upward movement on the same supply curve. Now we're talking about, and that is known as expansion. So upward movement on the supply curve is known as expansion of supply. And let me just take the other one also. If a downward movement on the supply curve will show fall in the quantity supplied, that is contraction of supply. Now talking about decrease in supply, what happens is, okay, let's increase in supply and decrease on the same price. On the same price, if due to factors other than price, say there has been a new invention or better technology, there has been an increase in supply. So your firm will move, it'll go to a same price, you'll be able to supply more. Okay, so that's what happens. For example, again, decrease in supply. Suppose there's an increase in the input that you're using. Suddenly the wages, laborers want more wages or something, your cost of production goes up. So then at the same price, what happens is there's a decrease in supply. So change in supply curve takes place. That means a new supply curve, there'll be a leftward and a rightward shift. So this I'm going to explain with the help. You can see the diagram. In the first diagram, I've talked about contraction and decrease, as you see. And in the other diagram, I've talked about expansion and increase. So we see when the original price is say P0, when there is you can see that when the price falls, there'll be a contraction of demand, and at the same price, if there's an original demand curve, it will shift leftward. So that shows there'll be a decrease in demand at the same price due to factors other than price. Any factor that you can take, maybe that there's been an increase in taxation, who knows. Now let's just take the other one. So we've talked about contraction, we've talked about decrease. Let's talk about expansion. That means upward movement on the supply curve. You can see that. That is, from the lower price OP0, it's gone high. So there is an upward movement. Supply has expanded. There's been an extension of supply. Okay. And here then we are going to talk about the increase in supply. Same price, a rightward shift. That means more supply. There has been an increase in supply due to some policy, some technological change, or other factors other than price. The price is given. So with this makes it very clear to you all that there's change in quantity supplied is only because of price, and change in supply, when we talk about change in supply, it is denoted by all the factors, all other determinants that affect supply other than price. So with that you can get a question as what are the determinants, or draw a diagram to show increase or decrease. So what are the terms used for change in quantity supplied? Then you can talk about expansion and contraction. So which are the terms used in change in supply? That is increase and decrease. So once you are well versed with your determinants of supply, all this becomes very simple.